My girlfriend made me sleep on the couch in my own apartment because her best friend needed privacy. That's the title I'd give this whole mess if I had to sum it up in one sentence, but it's way bigger than one night on a couch. It's 9 years of my life wrapped up in a guy named Nate, and I still don't know if I should meet him now that he's reaching out. I'm 27, he's 26. We started dating in high school. I was 18, he was 17, and we were just kids who thought love meant never letting go. For a long time, I believed that. I gave him everything, I mean that literally. I worked 2 jobs so he could focus on college when his parents disowned him for 3 years because they didn't agree with his major or the school he chose. I was also a college student myself. I was taking classes, pulling shifts, and still making sure he had dinner and clean laundry. I helped him through depression. I helped him keep his grades up. I was his girlfriend, his therapist, his mom, his cheerleader, his bank account. I lost myself in him. When his parents finally came back around and started supporting him financially, we moved into a new apartment. Nate told me he wanted me to quit my job. He said it was his turn to take care of me. I didn't quit. Something in me said don't do it, don't give up that safety net, but I did cut back to one job, and for 16 months things were great. He spoiled me. He was attentive. He made me feel like I was the center of his world. Then he made new friends at work. I noticed it slowly. He'd come home later, but he'd text me less. When I'd ask about his day, he'd give one-word answers. He'd be on his phone at dinner laughing at something I couldn't see. I'd ask who he was talking to, and he'd say just the guys. I'd try to join conversations with his new circle, but he'd change the subject. I started to feel like I was invisible in my own relationship. December came, and he did a complete 180. He love-bombed me so hard I didn't know what hit me. He bought me gifts. He took me out to fancy dinners. He made Christmas magical. I was so sure he was going to propose on January 2nd. He made my favorite dinner, steak and mashed potatoes with that garlic butter sauce I love. He lit candles. He poured wine. He gave this long speech about how I was his first love, how I'd been there since high school, how he couldn't imagine his life without me. I kept thinking any minute now he's going to pull out a ring. But no, he dumped me. His speech kept going and then it shifted. He said, "You were a good girlfriend, but that's what you'll always be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife or the mother of my children. I need more." I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just sat there with my fork in my hand, steak getting cold, and asked him who she was, because you don't just decide you need more after 9 years unless there's someone else. He denied it. He said it wasn't anyone specific, he just felt like he had outgrown me. I moved out within a week. I couldn't stay in that apartment. Every corner had a memory. I stayed with my sister for a month, then found a studio. I cried a lot. I went to therapy. I started to rebuild who I was without him. It was hard. You don't spend 9 years being someone's everything and then just switch it off. But I did it. Then last week I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Nate. He said he needed to get something off his chest. He wanted to meet and talk, no details, just please, it's important. I didn't respond right away. I sat on it for a day, then I called my sister. She said, "Don't you dare." And I know she's right, but I'm curious and hurt, and part of me still wants closure. I posted on Reddit asking if I should meet him. The responses were overwhelmingly no. But then I got a message from someone who knew more than I did, a mutual friend. Turns out Nate didn't just dump me because I wasn't wife material. He dumped me because he had a crush on a coworker, and when he broke up with me he went straight to her and confessed he was madly in love with her. He ended a 9-year relationship to be with her. Here's the funny part, she didn't even like him. She called him a piece of trash, told him if he ever spoke to her again she'd go to HR. He's been humiliated at work ever since. Everyone knows. He's the guy who threw away 9 years for a woman who didn't even know his name half the time. Now he wants to talk, probably wants to apologize, or maybe he's lonely, or maybe he thinks I'll take him back. But I'm not that girl anymore. I'm not the one who worked 2 jobs so he could study. I'm not the one who waited up for him. I'm not the one who thought love meant setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. I still haven't replied to his text, but I'm glad I didn't go, because hearing that story from the mutual friend, that was the closure I needed, not from him, from the truth. And I think the truth is he doesn't get to unload his guilt on me. He made his choice. He can live with it. That wasn't the only crazy thing that happened to me. A few months later, a coworker decided to play detective on my disability, and I'm still dealing with the fallout. I have chronic pain. I'm not going to pretend I've got it easy. Some days I can barely move, other days I'm functional. The way I describe it is like, you know that feeling when you step on a Lego, that sharp, instant 8 out of 10 pain that makes you see stars? Imagine that, but it's just there in the background, maybe a 6 on a good day, sometimes a 7 or 8. I manage. I work 2 jobs. I have a handicap placard on my car. I have canes I use when things get bad. I've got all the proper paperwork filed with my employer so I can get accommodations if I need them. I was moved to a new location closer to home a few months ago. Loved my new team. My boss Amy is actually human. She listens, she cares. Then there's Casey. Casey and I are both assistant coordinators under Amy. Casey has wanted a promotion for a long time, like obsessed with it. I never cared about that promotion because it would mean going full-time, and I already have a full-time job. I do this part-time gig to pad my savings and keep my anxiety busy. So Casey saw me as a threat anyway, even though I told her multiple times I wasn't interested. Everything started when I had a bad pain day one Sunday. I was at a 7 or 8 one of those days where even standing hurts, so I used my cane. That's normal for me. I went about my day, did some errands, stopped at a grocery store, nothing special. Then Monday at work, Casey comes up to me with this weird smile. She says, I saw you at the grocery store yesterday. You were walking fine without your cane. I said, yeah, I was using it earlier, but sometimes I can put it away if I'm just standing in line. Pain fluctuates. She didn't say anything else, but I noticed she started watching me. Every time I got up from my desk, I'd catch her staring. She'd ask passive-aggressive questions like, oh, you're not using your cane today, feeling good? And I'd explain again that it depends on the day. She didn't believe me. A week later, Amy calls me into her office. She looks uncomfortable. She says, Casey came to me with a concern. She said she's been documenting your movements. She took video of you outside of work to prove you're not really disabled. I felt my blood run cold. I said she filmed me without my permission. Amy nodded. She said Casey had shown her a video from the grocery store parking lot. In the video, I'm walking from my car to the store without my cane because at that moment my pain was lower. But Casey didn't capture the rest of the day. She didn't see me later that night, curled up on my bathroom floor because the pain had spiked again. I asked to see the video. Amy hesitated, then played it on her phone. It was me from a distance. Casey had been hiding between two cars. I looked normal. I looked fine, that's what she wanted to show. Amy said she had to escalate it to HR because it involved an invasion of privacy. I filed a formal complaint. The next week, I found out Casey had also been going through my desk looking for medical paperwork. And she had been badmouthing me to other coworkers, telling them I was faking for attention. I went to the police. I wanted to press charges for stalking or harassment. The officer I spoke to, a white guy with a bored expression, asked me, are you sure you're not overreacting? She's just a concerned coworker. I'm black, I'm in Texas, I know how this goes. I said she filmed me without consent. She went through my personal belongings. That's not concern, that's harassment. He said he'd look into it. I never heard back. At work, HR did an investigation. They talked to Casey. She denied filming me, said she just happened to be at the same store and was checking on my wellness. They bought it. She got a written warning for inappropriate behavior, and that was it. No suspension, no firing. I still have to see her every day. She still stares, but here's the update. Last week, Casey found out the promotion she wanted. It went to someone else, someone from another department. She lost it, cried in the break room. And then she came to me, actually came to my desk and said, I know you sabotaged me. I said, I told you 100 times I don't want that job. You sabotaged yourself by being a creep. She didn't answer, she just walked away. Now she's started a new campaign. She's telling people I'm a liability because of my medical drama. I've got a meeting with Amy and an HR rep next week. I'm not expecting much, but I'm not backing down. And just when I thought the universe was done testing me, my boss, my actual full-time boss, decided to ask me to host his entire family for a week. Let's call him Bob. Bob is the CEO's golden boy. The CEO, call him Dick because he has a hard-on for family men. When Bob and his wife had a kid, she became a SAHM and Dick promoted Bob on the spot. Never mind that Bob started showing up later and later to work. Never mind that he was napping at his desk half the time. I was his manager back then. I let it slide because he had a newborn, but I kept notes. Fast forward a year. Bob and his family moved across the country for a family emergency. Another promotion followed, then another. Now Bob outranks me. He's at the same level as my boss's boss, basically untouchable. A couple of weeks ago, I get a text from him. I hadn't spoken to him in months. The text says, hey, my wife, toddler, and dog need a place to stay for a week in January. Can they crash at your place? If not, I'll ask the company to cover a hotel. I literally laughed out loud. I texted back, are you serious? You want me to house your family for a week for free in my apartment? He said, well, you have that spare room, right? And it would be good for them to be near you. You're like family. I don't even know this man's dog's name. I've met his wife exactly twice. And he thinks I'm going to host them for 7 days. I ignored it. Then the next day, my direct boss, Dick, calls me into his office. He says, Bob mentioned you might be able to help with his housing situation. I think it's a great idea. You could use the bonding time. I said, I'm not hosting anyone. I have a 1-bedroom apartment. Where would they sleep? Dick said, you can get an air mattress or they can use your bed and you sleep on the couch. It's only a week. I said, no. He didn't like that. He said, I'm not asking. Bob has done a lot for this company. We take care of our own. Now, I've been at this job for 6 years. I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. I got silently demoted after I had a baby. Yeah, Dick has a problem with working mothers. Bob gets praised for being a good dad while showing up late every day. And now I'm supposed to give up my home. I said, if the company wants to pay for a hotel, they can. I'm not hosting. Dick's face went red. He said, fine. But don't expect any favors in the future. I walked out. I'm already updating my resume. I don't care anymore. Let Bob's wife and toddler and dog stay in a Motel 6. I'm not the company's free airboom, so that's my life right now. An ex who wants to apologize after getting rejected by the woman he left me for. A coworker who films me to prove I'm faking my disability. A boss who demands I host his golden boy's family. And nowhere to turn because every time I report something, nothing happens. I thought I was overreacting at first, but I'm not. I'm underreacting. I've been underreacting for years. And I'm done. If you want to know what happens next, I'll update. But right now, I'm just trying to survive the week. So let me tell you about my ex, Nate. We were together for 9 years, 9 years. I met him in high school. I was 18, he was 17. I thought we'd get married, have kids, grow old together. I gave him everything. I worked 2 jobs while he was in college because his parents disowned him for picking the wrong major. I paid for our apartment, bought his textbooks, made sure he ate. I was a collage student too, but I figured it was temporary. When his parents finally came around and started supporting him again, he said he wanted to take care of me. He told me to quit my job. I didn't. Good thing, because that was the only thing that saved me. For 16 months, things were great. He spoiled me. Dinners out, little gifts, weekend trips. But then he started making new friends at work. He'd ignore me for hours, glued to his phone. When I asked what was wrong, he'd say I was being clingy. Then December came and he love-bombed the hell out of me. He went all out for Christmas, got me a necklace I'd been eyeing, took me to a fancy dinner, wrote me a card that said "You're my forever." I honestly thought he was going to propose on January 2nd. He made my favorite dinner, lasagna, garlic bread, the whole thing. He gave this speech about how I was his first love, how I'd been there since high school, how I'd helped him through depression. I was sitting there, heart pounding, waiting for him to pull out a ring. But instead he said, "You've been a great girlfriend, but that's all you'll ever be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife." I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the lasagna going cold. He kept talking something about how he needed to grow, how I deserved better, how he had to be honest. But all I heard was the sound of 9 years crumbling. He packed a bag that night and left, said he'd stay with a friend. He moved out completely within a week. I didn't even fight it. I was numb. 3 months passed. I started picking up the pieces. I went to therapy. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected. I even started dating a little, nothing serious, just coffee dates to remind myself I was still alive. Then out of nowhere, I got a text from Nate. It said, "Hey, I need to get something off my chest. Can we talk?" I stared at my phone for 10 minutes. Part of me wanted to block him. Part of me wanted to hear what he had to say. I decided to meet him at a coffee shop, neutral ground, public, no chance of him pulling some dramatic stunt. When I walked in, he looked terrible. Puffy eyes, unshaven, same hoodie he wore the night he left. He started apologizing before I even sat down. He said, "I made a huge mistake. I thought leaving you would make me happy, but I've been miserable." I didn't say anything, I just waited. Then he told me the real reason he ended things. There was a coworker, a woman he'd been talking to for months. He said he fell for her, that she was everything he ever wanted, that he ended things with me because he thought she felt the same. He said he confessed his love to her the week after he dumped me. And do you know what she did? She laughed. She looked him in the eye and said, "Are you serious? You're nothing. I would never date a guy who threw away a 9-year relationship like that. You're a piece of trash." Then she walked away and never spoke to him again. I almost laughed too. Actually, I did laugh. A bitter, dry laugh that made him flinch. He said, "I know I hurt you, but I need to know if there's any chance if we could try again." I've learned my lesson. I've changed. I just shook my head. I said, "You didn't leave me because I wasn't wife material. You left me because you thought you had a better option. And when that option rejected you, you came crawling back. That's not love, that's convenience." He started crying. I stood up, threw $5 on the table for my coffee and walked out. I haven't spoken to him since. I heard through mutual friends that he's been trying to reach out to that coworker again, but she blocked him everywhere. He's alone now, and I'm not going to be his backup plan. That was the closure I needed, I guess. But it still stings, 9 years. I gave up so much, my savings, my social life, my own ambition for a guy who couldn't even see me as a wife. Now I'm rebuilding. I've got a new apartment, a promotion at my full-time job, and a cat who doesn't give a damn about my relationship status. Life is better, but sometimes I wonder if I'll ever trust anyone again. And just when I thought I could exhale, the drama at work kicked off. That coworker, Casey, the one who filmed me in the grocery store parking lot, she's been relentless. After HR gave her a written warning for inappropriate behavior, she went quiet for a while, but now she's escalated. She started telling other coworkers that I'm a liability because of my chronic pain. She said I was faking it for attention, that I was costing the company money with my medical drama. I overheard her in the break room yesterday saying she's just looking for a lawsuit, that's all she wants. I confronted her. I said if I wanted a lawsuit, I would have filed one already. I just want to do my job. She rolled her eyes and walked away. Today I had a meeting with my boss Amy and an HR rep. The HR rep, a woman named Diane with the personality of a wet paper towel, said they de-reviewed Casey's complaints and found no evidence of misconduct. I said, "She filmed me without consent. She went through my desk. She's spreading lies." Diane said, "We've spoken to her. She denies filming you. She says she was just checking on your wellness. Without hard evidence, we can't take further action." I asked about the video she showed Amy. Diane said Casey had deleted it from her phone. Convenient, right? So now I'm stuck working next to someone who actively wants me gone. I've started looking for another job. I can't keep fighting this fight. And my boss Bob, the CEO's golden boy, he actually had the nerve to send me another text last night. It said, "Hey, just following up on the housing situation. My wife and toddler are really looking forward to staying with you. Let me know if you need anything." I didn't respond. Instead, I sent my resignation letter to Dick this morning. I said I cannot work in an environment where I am expected to provide free housing and emotional labor for colleagues, effective 2 weeks from today. Dick called me within 5 minutes. He said, "You're being dramatic. Bob is a great guy. This is a small request." I said, "It's not a small request. It's an invasion of my space, and I'm done being everyone's doormat." He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, "Fine, good luck." Click, so that's where I am now. Unemployed in 2 weeks. A disability case that no one takes seriously. An ex who wants me back after his plan failed. And a boss who thought my apartment was a hotel. I'm not sure what comes next, but I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for standing up for myself. I'm not sorry for saying no. I'm just tired. Really, really tired. If I find another job, I'll let you know. Until then, I'm going to focus on my cat, my chronic pain, and maybe a vacation to somewhere that doesn't have a Casey or a Bob or a Nate. Somewhere quiet. I thought I was done with Nate for good after that coffee shop. But a week later, he started texting me from a different number. "I know you don't want to talk, but I can't stop thinking about you. Please just let me explain one more time." I blocked that number too. He made a new email address and sent me a 3-paragraph apology that basically said he was ready to commit now. I deleted it without reading the whole thing. Then he showed up at my apartment on a Tuesday night. I was in my pajamas feeding my cat when I heard a knock. I looked through the peephole and saw his face, puffy and desperate. I didn't open the door. I said, "Go away, Nate." He said, "Please, just 5 minutes. I need you to know I've been going to therapy." I realized I was a coward. I said, "Good for you, do your therapy, but leave me alone." He stood there for another 10 minutes, then finally left. I called the non-emergency police line the next morning and asked what I could do. They said without a direct threat or repeated harassment, they couldn't do much. So I wrote down every date and time he contacted me, saved every voicemail. I told my landlord and asked them to note that he was not allowed on the property. That seemed to work. He hasn't tried since. I heard from a mutual friend that he started dating a girl from his gym, but she broke up with him after 3 weeks because he kept talking about his ex, me. I guess I'm still the ghost in his love life. And honestly, that's his problem now, but that wasn't the only mess I had to deal with. The Casey situation at work got a lot worse before it got better. After the HR meeting where Diane told me there was no evidence, I felt completely powerless. I started documenting everything. Every time Casey walked past my desk and muttered something under her breath, I wrote it down. Every time she accidentally left a passive-aggressive sticky note on my monitor, like "Remember to actually work today," smiling face with smiling eyes, I photographed it. I kept a digital log with timestamps. 2 weeks after that HR meeting, I came out to my car in the parking lot after a late shift. The driver's side door had a long, deep scratch all the way from the handle to the rear panel. It looked like someone had taken a key to it. My stomach dropped. I knew it was her. Who else would do that? I filed a police report, but the officer basically shrugged and said it could have been random vandalism. I asked if they could check security cameras. He looked at the building and said the lot cameras were mostly pointed at entrances, not the middle rows. So that went nowhere. I was furious. I went home and cried, not because of the scratch, I could fix that, but because nobody believed me. I felt like I was screaming into a void. Then 3 days later, I found something under my car. I was getting out in the morning and noticed a small black box stuck to the underside of the frame with a magnet. It was a GPS tracker. I recognized it because my cousin used one on his truck fleet. My hands were shaking as I pried it off. I brought it inside and took a photo. Then I called the police again and told them I had physical evidence of stalking. They sent an officer to my apartment this time. I showed him the tracker, showed him my log of incidents, showed him the photos of the scratch. He was a different guy, older, more serious. He said, "This changes things. We can run the serial number, see who bought it." They did. It was purchased online, but the shipping address was a P.O. box near Casey's neighborhood. Not definitive, but enough for a warrant to search her phone. 2 weeks later, she was arrested for stalking and criminal mischief. Turns out she had a whole folder on her phone labeled OOP proof with videos of me at the grocery store, at the gas station, even at my own mailbox. The police found them when they executed the warrant. Casey's excuse: she said she was building a case to show HR because she thought I was faking my disability. The DA charged her with harassment and invasion of privacy. She was suspended from work pending the trial. I took a deep breath. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe justice existed. And then there was Bob, the CEO's golden boy. After I sent my resignation letter, Dick called me twice. The first call I ignored. The second one I picked up because I was curious what he'd say. He said, "Look, I think you're overreacting. Bob's a good guy. He's just under a lot of pressure. Can we meet and talk this out?" I said no. I told him I had already started interviewing elsewhere. He said, "If you leave, you're burning bridges. This industry is small." I said, "I'd rather be unemployed than work for someone who thinks it's okay to ask employees to host his family for free." He went silent, then muttered, "Fine, good luck. I hope you find what you're looking for." Click, I thought that was it. But the next day I got a call from Bob's wife. She was crying. She said, "I'm so sorry. My husband had no right to ask you that. I didn't even know he was planning to send us to anyone's house. We have family in the area. I'm so embarrassed." I told her it wasn't her fault, but she insisted on apologizing again. Then she dropped a bombshell. Bob had been fired that morning. Dick discovered that Bob had been using company funds to pay for personal vacations and claiming them as business expenses. The audit caught it. Bob was out. That same afternoon, Dick's assistant called me and offered me my old position back plus a raise and a written apology. I said I'd think about it. I didn't. I had already accepted an offer from a competitor, better pay, better culture, and a manager who didn't expect me to be a free airman. So here I am now. I have a new job in a new building. My chronic pain is still a daily thing, but my new boss let me set up a small cot in my office for bad days. My car still has that scratch, but I got it buffed out. My cat is fat and happy. Nate is a distant memory. Casey is awaiting trial. Bob is unemployed. And I'm learning to say no to unreasonable requests, to guilt trips, to people who treat me like a stepping stone. If I find another lesson, I'll let you know. Until then, I'm going to focus on my cat, my chronic pain, and maybe a vacation to somewhere that doesn't have a Casey or a Bob or a Nate. Somewhere quiet. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. About a week after Nate's last attempt to reach me, I got a text from an old high school friend named Jenna. She said, "Hey, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I heard you and Nate broke up. I just wanted to let you know something I think you should hear." My stomach flipped. I called her right away. Jenna told me that Nate had been talking to one of our mutual friends, a guy named Derek, and apparently Nate had been bragging about how he was going to win me back because he realized he made a mistake. But the kicker was what Derek said back to him. According to Jenna, Derek told Nate, "Dude, you literally told me you left her because you thought you could do better. Now you're saying she's the one who got away? That's pathetic." Nate allegedly got really defensive and said, "She was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was just too young to know it." Derek laughed at him, said, "You're 26, man. You're not that young. You just thought the grass was greener." It was. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to feel validated, like I won something. But really, I just felt exhausted. 9 years. 9 years of my life I gave to someone who treated me like a placeholder until something better came along. And now he wanted me back because the something better turned out to be a mirage. I told Jenna I was fine, that I was moving on. She said she was proud of me. I hung up and sat on my couch for an hour, staring at my cat. She just blinked at me. I think she understood. Then a few days later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address, but I recognized the handwriting, Nate S. He always wrote his sevens with a line through them. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. It was 4 pages long. He wrote about how he met a girl at work, not the one from the coffee shop, someone else. He said he started having feelings for her and convinced himself that I was holding him back. He said he convinced himself that I wasn't ambitious enough, that I didn't push him hard enough, that I was too comfortable with just being a girlfriend. He said he was wrong. He said he realized that I had been the one pushing him forward the whole time, working 2 jobs so he could focus on school, helping him through his depression, being his rock. He said the new girl didn't want to do any of that. She just wanted a guy with a career and no baggage. He said, "I think I broke something in myself when I left you. I don't know if I can fix it, but I wanted you to know that I know I messed up. I'm not asking for a second chance, I just needed to say it." I read the letter 3 times. Then I tore it into small pieces and threw it in the trash. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I felt nothing. That was the funny thing about healing. Sometimes you just stop caring. Losing 9 years of your life to someone who didn't see your worth is a tragedy when it happens. But after a while, you realize you were the one carrying the weight the whole time. And when you put it down, you feel lighter than you ever felt before. Now about the Casey situation. That GPS tracker I found under my car, the police ran the serial number and traced it back to an Amazon account. The account was registered to a PO box in a town 20 minutes away. The detective called me 2 days later and said they had enough to get a warrant for Casey's phone and her computer. The day they executed the warrant, I was at work. I saw 2 police officers walk past my cubicle and into Casey's office. She went pale. They asked her to step outside. She didn't come back that day. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, my boss, Amy, called me into her office and told me Casey had been arrested for stalking. She said they found videos on her phone of me at the grocery store, at the gas station, at the pharmacy. They even found a video of me opening my mailbox. Casey had been following me for weeks. Amy looked like she was about to cry. She said, "I'm so sorry I didn't believe you sooner. I was wrong. You were telling the truth the whole time." I wanted to say, "I told you so," but I just said, "Thank you, I appreciate that." She said Casey was suspended pending the investigation and that she would be terminated if the charges stuck. I nodded. I felt a strange sense of calm. Like finally, after all those months of gaslighting and suspicion, someone had listened. The trial hasn't happened yet. It's scheduled for next month. I'm not looking forward to it. I have to testify. I have to look at her face and tell a room full of strangers what she did to me. But I'm ready. I have my log. I have my photos. I have the tracker. I have the videos she took. The police shared a few of them with me as evidence. Watching them made me sick. There I was, just going about my day, completely unaware that she was crouched behind a car with her phone out, recording me limping out of a CVS. She was trying to catch me faking it. But there I was, walking slowly, holding my back, grimacing. It was real, it was my life, and she wanted to punish me for it. Bob's wife called me again a couple weeks after the arrest. She said Bob was in therapy now, that he realized he had been a terrible husband and a terrible employee. She said she was considering divorce. I didn't know what to say to that. I just told her I hoped she found what made her happy. She thanked me and hung up. I felt bad for her, honestly. She was caught in the middle of her husband's delusions. She didn't ask to be a pawn in his scheme for a free vacation. As for me, I started my new job 2 weeks ago. It's a smaller company, about 30 people. The culture is completely different. People say good morning and mean it. My boss, a woman named Maria, asked me in my first week if I needed any accommodations. I told her about my chronic pain, about my bad days. She said, no problem. Let's get you a good chair and a heating pad. And if you need a day to work from home, just let me know. I almost cried. I didn't realize how much I had been holding my breath at my old job until I could breathe again. I still have bad days. Yesterday was a 6 on the pain scale. I used my cane. I moved slowly. Nobody stared. Nobody whispered. Nobody recorded me. I just did my work, left on time, and went home to my cat. She curled up on my lap and purred. I watched a dumb reality show and forgot about the world for a few hours. It was perfect. I'm not sure what the future holds. I'm still healing from the 9 years I lost to Nate. I'm still dealing with the aftermath of Casey's obsession. I'm still adjusting to a new job and a new normal, but I'm not scared anymore. I used to think that being alone was the worst thing that could happen to me. Now I know that being alone is peaceful, it's quiet, it's mine, and no one is going to take that away from me again. I never thought I'd have to tell my boss, the CEO's golden boy, that I wasn't a hotel. But here we are. My name is not important. What's important is that I work for a company where the CEO, a guy we all call Dick, because he is one, runs things like a damn monarchy. Bob is his favorite. Bob got promoted 3 times in 2 years because he had a kid and his wife became a SAHM. Meanwhile, I had a baby and got silently demoted. No announcement, no conversation, just a new title in the system that meant less pay and more work. And nobody said a word, but I played nice. For 2 years I played nice. I did my job, I kept my head down. I watched Bob show up late, take naps in his office, miss meetings, and still get praised as a family man. I watched myself get passed over for raises. I watched my workload double. I thought, okay, this is temporary, I'll find something else. But the job market is trash and I have a toddler and I can't just quit, so I stayed. Then December 3rd, I get a text from Bob, not an email, not a phone call, a text. He says, hey, my family is coming into town for a week in January. My wife, my toddler, and my dog. Would you be able to host them at your place? I stared at my phone for a solid 30 seconds, then I laughed. Then I realized he was serious. He followed up with, if that doesn't work, I can ask the company to pay for accommodations. Like he was doing me a favor, like I should be grateful he gave me an out. I didn't answer right away. I needed to think. I went home that night and told my husband. He said, is he insane? I said, I think so. I showed him the text. He read it twice and then said, tell him no and tell him to never text you again. I wanted to, but I also knew that Bob and Dick were thick as thieves. If I said no, I'd be on the shit list, and I was already on thin ice for having the audacity to have a baby and not return to work as the same person. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I ignored the text for a day, then Bob texted again. Hey, just checking in on the hosting thing. My wife is really excited. I replied, Bob, I don't think I can host your family. I have a small apartment and my own family is here. I'm sure you can find a hotel. He didn't respond. I thought that was the end of it. The next morning I got called into Dick's office. He had this fake smile on his face. He said, I heard Bob asked you to help out his family. That would really mean a lot to him. He's under a lot of pressure right now. I said, I can't host them. I don't have the space. Dick's smile dropped. He said, I think you can find a way to make it work. We're a family here. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, I'll think about it. I walked out of that office and I went straight to my desk and I updated my LinkedIn. I started applying to jobs that night, but the pressure didn't stop. Bob started emailing me directly. His wife called me. She was nice enough. She said, I know it's a lot to ask, but we really don't have anywhere else to go. Bob said you have a spare room. I told her I didn't have a spare room. I have a nursery. My daughter sleeps there. She said, oh, we can share a room. The toddler can sleep with us. I said, I'm sorry, I can't. It's not going to work. She got quiet. She said, I understand. But I could tell she didn't. A week later, I got an email from HR. They scheduled a meeting. I thought maybe I was getting a raise. Instead, they told me that Bob had complained about my attitude and that I was not being a team player. They suggested I reconsider his request. I told HR that I had a baby, a husband, and a small apartment. They said, we understand, but we're asking you to be flexible. I said, flexible means working late sometimes. It doesn't mean housing my boss's family. The HR lady looked uncomfortable. She said, we'll note that in your file. That was when everything changed. I decided I wasn't going to let them walk all over me. I went home and I wrote a very clear email to Bob, CCing Dick and HR. I said, I am unable to host your family. This is not negotiable. Please do not ask again. If you need assistance finding a hotel, I can recommend a few in the area. I sent it. My hands were shaking. Bob never replied. But the next day, Dick called me into his office again. He said, I read your email. I think you're being unreasonable. Bob has done a lot for this company. He's a good father. He's a good husband. He just wanted his family to be comfortable. I said, I have a family too, Dick. My daughter is 9 months old. I'm not going to append her routine for a week because Bob doesn't want to pay for a hotel. Dick stared at me. He said, I'm disappointed in you. I said, I'm disappointed in this company. Then I walked out. I didn't get fired, but I got frozen out. My projects were reassigned. My emails went unanswered. I became invisible. I spent January applying to jobs, Every day I sent out 5 or 6 applications. I got 2 interviews. One of them was at a nonprofit. The pay was less, but the culture sounded different. I took the job. I gave my 2 weeks notice on a Friday. Dick called me into his office one last time. He said, "I'm sorry it came to this. I really think you could have been a valuable asset here." I said, "I was a valuable asset, you just didn't see it." He didn't have a response. I cleaned out my desk. I said goodbye to the few people who still talked to me, and I left. The weirdest thing happened after I left. Bob's wife called me again. This was about 3 weeks ago. She said, "I'm sorry for everything. Bob has started therapy. He realized he was being a terrible husband and a terrible employee. He's been talking about how he pushed you too far." I didn't know what to say. I said, "I hope he gets better, but I'm not coming back." She said, "I know, I just wanted you to know you were right. I'm considering divorce." I told her I hope she finds happiness. She thanked me. We hung up. Now I work at the nonprofit. I have my own cubicle. My boss, Maria, is a woman in her 50s who actually listens. She asked me in my first week if I needed any accommodations for my baby. I told her I don't need anything right now, but it was nice to be asked. She said, "We're flexible here. You're a person first and employee second." I almost cried. I didn't realize how much I had been holding in until I could breathe. I still think about Bob sometimes. I think about how he thought it was okay to ask me to house his family. I think about how Dick backed him up. I think about how the company rewarded him for being a dad and punished me for being a mom. It's not fair, but I'm not there anymore. I'm somewhere where they see me, and that's enough. I never thought I'd hear from my ex again after 9 years. 9 years. That's a third of my life. I was 17 when we got together, barely out of high school. He was my first everything, first kiss, first love, first time I thought someone would actually stay. His name is Nate, and for almost a decade I built my entire world around him. I helped him through his depression when his parents disowned him over his college major. I worked 2 jobs so he could focus on his classes because his parents cut him off financially for nearly 3 years. I was a college student myself, but I didn't care. I loved him. I thought that was enough. When his parents finally started talking to him again and began supporting him, we moved into a new apartment. Nate said he wanted to take care of me. He told me to quit my job, but I didn't. I kept working because something in my gut told me not to trust it. For 16 months, everything was great. He spoiled me. He took me out to dinner, bought me little gifts, told me I was beautiful. But then he started making new friends at work. He'd come home late, ignore me when I tried to talk, scroll through his phone during dinner. I told myself I was overreacting. He's just busy, he's just stressed. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then December came, and he did a complete 180. He bombed me like crazy. He went out of his way to make Christmas magical, decorated the whole apartment, bought me the coat I'd been eyeing for months, cooked my favorite meals. I honestly believed he was going to propose. On January 2nd, he made me my favorite dinner, lasagna with garlic bread, the same meal he made on our first anniversary. He gave this long speech about how I was his first love, how I'd been there for him since high school, how he couldn't imagine his life without me. I kept thinking, any minute now he's gonna ask me to marry him. I was holding my breath, but he didn't. He kept talking. And then he said, "You were a good girlfriend, but that's all you'll ever be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife. I don't think you're wife material." The words hit me like a truck. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the lasagna getting cold on the table. He kept going, something about how he needed more, how he deserved someone who challenged him. He had already packed a bag. He left that night. I spent the next 3 months in a fog, crying in the shower, calling in sick to work, losing weight I couldn't afford to lose. I found out later through a mutual friend that he had been talking to a coworker, a woman he'd known for maybe 6 months. He told her he was madly in love with her. He ended a 9-year relationship to be with her. And you know what she did? She called him a piece of trash. She told him she didn't even like him. She said if he ever spoke to her again, she'd go to HR. I laughed when I heard that. I laughed so hard I cried, but that wasn't the end. About 2 weeks ago, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Nate. He said, "I need to get something off my chest. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. My first instinct was to delete it, but curiosity got the better of me. I replied, "What do you want?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I made a mistake. I know that now. I just want to apologize in person." I told him no. I said, "You had 9 years to treat me right. You don't get to show up now and clear your conscience." He kept push. He called me. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail that I saved because I wanted evidence in case he got weird. In the voicemail, he said, "I know I messed up. I was stupid. The coworker thing was a mistake. She didn't want me. I'm alone now. I just want to talk, please." His voice sounded small, but I didn't care. I remembered how he looked at me when he said I wasn't wife material. I remembered the way he packed his bag without looking back. I remembered all those nights I lay awake wondering what I did wrong. I deleted the voicemail. I blocked his number. The weirdest part. A few days ago, I ran into his sister at the grocery store. She hugged me, which was awkward. She said Nate had been leaving work early, drinking a lot, crying in his car. She said he kept talking about me, about how he ruined the only good thing in his life. She said he's a mess. He finally realizes what he lost. I just nodded. I didn't tell her that I had already moved on, not to someone else. I'm not ready for that, but I moved on from him. The version of me that loved him died in January. The woman standing in the produce aisle is someone different. She knows her worth now. So no, I'm not going to meet him. I'm not going to give him closure. I don't owe him a thing. He made his choice. He can live with it. And for the first time in 9 years, I'm living for myself. And then there was the thing at work. My name is not important, but I have a condition called chronic pain. I've had it for years. I don't talk about it much because people either don't believe me or treat me like I'm fragile. I'm neither. I'm active. I work 2 jobs. I own canes but only use them on bad days. I have a handicap placard on my car because some days the walk from the parking lot to the building feels like a marathon. I thought I had it all figured out. I had paperwork on file with my job. I had a great boss named Amy, and then there was Casey. Casey and I are both assistant coordinators. She wanted a promotion badly. I didn't. I already have a full-time job. This one was just for extra savings. Casey resented me for that. She thought I was taking a spot from someone who actually wanted to move up. I didn't care. I did my work, went home, lived my life, but Casey had other plans. One Sunday I was having a bad pain day, level 7 on my personal scale, which means I was using my cane. I went to the grocery store to pick up a few things. I didn't think anything of it. But the next day at work, Casey called me into her office. She had her phone out. She said, "I saw you at the store yesterday. You were walking just fine without your cane. Then suddenly you had it when you got out of your car. What's that about?" I said, "I wasn't walking fine. I was using my cane. You must have missed it." She shook her head. She pulled up a video on her phone. It was me in the parking lot getting out of my car, and yes, I was holding my cane. But the video started after I had already picked it up. She had edited out the part where I was using it. I said, "Casey, what is this?" She said, "I'm just trying to prove that you're not actually disabled. You're faking it for the accommodations." I felt my face go hot. I said, "I have a genuine medical condition. I have paperwork. I have a doctor. This is harassment." She smirked. She said, "We'll see about that." I walked out and went straight to Amy. I showed her what Casey had done. Amy looked at the video, then looked at me. She said, "I'll talk to HR." But nothing happened. Casey kept her job. The video got circulated around the office. People started looking at me weird. One guy asked me, "So do you really need that cane or is it just for attention?" I wanted to scream. I filed a complaint. I called the police. They told me it was a workplace issue and wouldn't take a report. I started getting emails from Casey's friends, passive-aggressive comments about fake disabilities. I couldn't prove she started it, but I knew. I started applying for jobs. I updated my LinkedIn. I changed my settings so no one could see my activity. I started documenting everything, dates, times, what was said, who said it. I forwarded all the emails to my personal account. Then last week, Casey got promoted. I saw the announcement in the company newsletter. She's now the assistant regional manager. I almost threw up. I wanted to quit right then, but I didn't. I'm still there, I'm still applying, I'm still documenting, because I know that if I leave without a fight, she wins. And I'm not going to let her win, but I'll tell you this. That video still lives on someone's phone. People still whisper when I walk by, and every time I use my cane, I feel like I have to prove something. It's exhausting, it's humiliating. And it's not fair, but I'm not done yet. I'm not going to let them break me. Right when I thought I couldn't take any more nonsense from coworkers, my boss decided to top it all off. I'm still in that same company, different department now, but the story I'm about to tell you happened about 3 months ago. It's the kind of thing that makes you question whether you're living in a parallel universe where common sense doesn't exist. So I work for a mid-sized company. The CEO, let's call him Dick because he is one, has this golden boy named Bob. Bob started out under me in the hierarchy. I was his supervisor for a while. He was okay at his job, but nothing special. Then Bob and his wife had a baby. She became a stay-at-home mom. Dick, who has some weird hang-up about family values, decided Bob was a hero just for reproducing. He promoted Bob. Didn't matter that Bob started showing up late, missing meetings, falling asleep at his desk. I was the one covering for him, but nobody noticed because I'm just the reliable workhorse. Over the next year, Bob got promoted again and again. He moved across the country for a family emergency and boom, another promotion. By the time I blinked, he outranked me. I went from being his supervisor to being his subordinate, and my salary frozen for 4 years. I got silently demoted around the same time I had a baby, because Dick apparently thinks women who become mothers are less committed, but men who become fathers are saints. I didn't make a fuss because I needed the insurance. Then one day in December, I get a text from Bob. I almost dropped my phone. He wrote, "Hey, my wife and toddler and dog need to stay at your place for a week in January. I'll be traveling for work. Can you host them? If not, I'll ask the company to pay for their hotel." I read it 3 times, then I laughed, then I cried a little. This man who never speaks to me except to delegate his leftover work wants me to house his entire family for free. And the pay for hotel part was thrown in like a consolation prize. I didn't reply. I went straight to my desk and took an aspirin. Then I had a meeting with Dick. He brought up the request within 5 minutes. He said, "Bob mentioned you might be able to help out with his family situation. It would really show team spirit." I said, "I'm not a hotel. I have a 1-bedroom apartment. My kid sleeps in the living room. Where exactly would his wife and toddler and dog go?" Dick waved his hand. "You'll figure it out. Bob's a great guy. He's done a lot for this company." I felt my blood pressure spike. I said, no, I'm not hosting them. That's not part of my job description. Dick's face went tight. He said, I'm disappointed. I thought you were more of a team player. After that, things got hostile. Dick started micromanaging me. He scheduled a meeting with HR to discuss my attitude. I had to sit there while they told me I was being unreasonable and not pulling my weight. I pointed out that Bob missed more work in a month than I took in a year. They said that was irrelevant because Bob had family responsibilities. I wanted to scream. I didn't. I just kept my head down and started applying for jobs. 2 weeks ago, I found something. It pays less, but the boss isn't a narcissistic hypocrite. I put in my notice. Dick didn't even look at me. He just said, we'll survive without you. Bob sent me a text that said, sorry to see you go. Let me know if you want a reference. I didn't answer. I cleaned out my desk, said goodbye to the few good people I worked with, and walked out. On my last day, I got an email from Casey, the same Casey from the chronic pain video drama. She's now my replacement. She sent me a message, don't let the door hit you on the way out. I didn't reply, I just blocked her. I'm done letting people treat me like a doormat. I'm done being the reliable one who gets stepped on. From now on, I'm the one who walks away.